Hello, everyone. Welcome to our first event of Startup Grind Montenegro. Startup Grind is the world's largest startup community with more than 600 cities, with almost 5 million entrepreneurs involved in the community, 130 countries. And in February, we are celebrating the Web3 month. This is a specific theme for our fireside chats across the world. And we are trying to understand a little bit more and to learn more from this new trend, the evolution of the internet, where are we going? And for that matter, we have today to Peter Schindler. He's a, let's say, Web3 enthusiast. He has been working with these kind of technologies for a few years now, and I hope we can learn a lot today. Before we start, I would like to share with you a little bit more about Startup Grind, and we hope you can join us to the Global Conference, 12th and 13th of April 2022.
So far, it's only been halfway through the first day, and it's just been a whirlwind. So this is just about meeting people, establishing networks.
I think it's a great international learning platform, I would say.
Meet people from very diverse backgrounds.
And really building on those relationships.
Absolutely, if you have the chance to come here.
Help us learn and help us meet people. And
you are thinking about an environment that is going to really contribute to your startup.
It's all about the new ideas, the new technology that will change this world.
And we're really excited about all the connections we're making here.
The vibe and the networking and the leads that you can get.
Absolutely important to come here to meet all the brilliant people.
Where did you meet that startup grind?
You get to learn from very experienced people here.
And meet the like-minded investors.
You learn to make friends instead of making contacts.
It's an amazing network that allows entrepreneurs to interact with each other.
With a QR code, you can just connect with people instantly.
This is a really collaborative environment. It's really refreshing.
This is our first Startup Grind event, and it has far exceeded our expectations.
So without further ado, let's receive Peter Schindler with us. There you are.
Hello.
Peter, thank you and welcome to our first event of Startup Grind Montenegro. And we have been discussing about these topics for a while now, and I think the audience will appreciate everything you have to say today to us. So let me just kick this up with the first question, and that is, what is Web3 and why it's so different from whatever we know from Web2?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for inviting me. Thanks for having me. Yeah, personally, I've been around the space, lurking around, reading about it, working in it a bit for about 4 years, since 2017. Which involved lots of ups and downs, as we can imagine. To your question of, what's the difference between Web 2 and Web 3? I would add Web 1 actually to it, and to kind of put it on a timeline, I would say Web 1 started in the 1990s with the internet, and went all the way, let's say, till 2005. And Web 1 you can think of as the internet that was read-only, so it was just a very simple website. Think of it as a magazine or a brochure, and people would
only information, just as a source of information.
Yes, only information that was displayed, and it was still kind of those fiddly computers, and back in the day, many people didn't even know what the internet was. And essentially what it was used for is bringing paper onto the internet. So, we were used to magazines, and then what we just did, we just put them onto websites. Then let's say mid 2005, it started becoming more interactive, right? So, and that's where I would say Web 2 started, which we would say is read and write, right? So you could, the blogging started, or 2007, 2008, social media with Facebook started. And users were not just reading stuff, but they could put into, they could put their thoughts on the website. They could like chat with each other. There were a bunch of use cases that arose from there.
So let me interrupt you, because
Sure.
at that time, even during what you just mentioned, Web 1, there were many alternatives of doing this kind of bidirectional communication with BBS and some other forums and chat rooms.
Yep.
But we can say that the beginning of Web 2, as we know it today, begins with the mass adoption of these social platforms, right?
Yeah, I mean, and mass adoption, I would say, it was also helped by smartphones as well, right? So let's say 2010, smartphones really started taking off, because before that we had those like normal phones, those Nokia phones, and you could just do basic stuff with it, like text messaging, phone calls, But 2010, these little devices became like really strong and like as fast as computers, and then you could really like start interacting with websites, and then in the Google store, you had essentially internet brought to your phone. So that really
the mobile
helped.
boom.
The mobile boom, exactly. Yeah. So that also kind of ties into Web 2 and helped mass adoption there. And then I would like say that so people started putting their data or their messages or their
lives, actually,
their content,
their lives online, yes,
their lives online, with the slight caveat that it was going through a middleman, a platform, right? And if you're a software engineer or you work with kind of programming, then you know that this stuff is stored somewhere in so-called databases, data centers, and that data belongs to someone. So for example, if you upload a picture onto Instagram, that picture is stored on a database and belongs to
Meta
Instagram,
right
Facebook.
Now. Well, that belongs to Meta right now.
Exactly.
Which is the umbrella behind everything.
Yeah.
But yes.
And slowly but truly, the most valuable so-called product on the internet became your data, right? And let's say the mass adoption, the users got tricked into this feeling that everything is for free, whereas in, let's say, Web 1, you would buy a video game or you would buy a DVD and you would pay $10 and you would get it and stuff like that. Whereas now everything like seemed free. But what they didn't realize is that their data was being monetized by these middlemen platforms to sell it and drive advertisement.
Exactly. So if it is free, you are the product.
Exactly.
That's what they say.
And so Web 2, I would say, went from 2005-ish to 2020. I would say we're still in it, right? So it's kind of it's a blurry transition period. But going into Web 3, it's quite interesting because let's say it started 2020, and it means read, write, and own. And specifically own your own data. And I say it started with 2020, but it really started with the invention of Bitcoin in 2009. And to truly understand what Web3 is, I think it would be kind of cool to clarify a couple of basic terms about Bitcoin, blockchain. So
especially because the transition from Web 1 to Web 2, we didn't have a change in the technology. We just basically have an upgrade in the devices we were using. So the increase of the bandwidth available in the countries with the new technologies on the phones allowed us to gain access to better and wider content of the same kind. And as you said, just to upload your things without being in a university or in a corporation. But now that you are mentioning crypto things, the change in the technology base is like a complete shift from what we know to something that we are learning right now, at least those who are not like techie guys. So
this change might feel quite subtle because it happens like under the hood, like we don't realize it in programming terms. It's in the back end, so for the average user, ideally there won't be much of a, let's say, difference in the interfacing, in the user experience. But there will be a new business model, right? So Web2 had the advertising as its business model. So it was free, but you basically were displayed ads, so I don't know, if you're scrolling your Facebook, you have a lot of like advertisement displayed to you based on your
preference, your data, your likes, your internet activity.
Exactly, your internet activity. And yes, so with Web3, the idea is that this business model will change in the sense that you own your own data, and you get to kind of choose who to share it with, and where you want to monetize it from. For example, I don't know, if you want, there will be like platforms where you can truly manage your own metadata as such, and you can choose to share your birth date or your gender. And if you want them to use, I don't know, your gender or your hobby preferences, then they will have to pay you a small amount of money. And then we get into money as such, right? Because money was never an internet native thing, right? So we never had money for the internet. In other words, if I were to send you money now, I don't know, if I were to send you 10 euros or something, it would have to go through me to my bank, to your bank, and then to you, and there were always like 2 or 3 kind of jumps.
Yes, middlemen
that were not, let's say, it was digital, but not kind of internet natively digital. Whereas with the invention of Bitcoin and crypto, there is a direct line of money and value and data transaction from user to user, and that is one of the pieces this Web3 relies on.
Okay, so there is something curious about this idea of owning your own data and decided whether you want to monetize it or not. And in this period of transition, what do you think that happens with all the information that you already provide to those big corporations that they basically own your data? And what will what needs to happen for the people working on advertising to buy your data instead of continue buying to them, because they already have that and they have basically
that's a good question.
Your profile for over 10 years.
So it's not going to happen overnight for sure, but what comes to mind is I don't know if you remember GDPR.
Yes.
There was this
regulation for protection of personal data. Yes.
For protection of personal data, and I don't know who introduced it. It was like, I think it was European, but essentially governments realized that it's kind of going too far. And to my understanding, what that brought into is that big middlemen like Facebook or Google, they had to allow the possibility for a user to essentially take out their own data if they chose so, right? So there was a bunch of turmoil around that. They adopted their platform. So even today, you can go on Facebook and you can. There is a way to remove your data, right? I don't know how to do it. It's really hard.
That's what they say. That's what they say.
I never did it.
No, because we actually continue using the platform for several reasons.
And then we get to network effects. Then it's like they have so entrenched network effects in our lives that it's very hard. But it's possible to get your data out. I think if you go on YouTube and you find a YouTube video.
I think that part of the European regulations are doing them because they can't just forbid everything in one moment, but they are taking steps. If you heard about Facebook or Zuckerberg telling, oh, maybe we remove Facebook and Instagram from Europe because you don't let us to move the information of the users from the European data centers to the US, that's a first step. So basically, the data belongs to the geoposition of the user.
Yeah, exactly.
To say something, and probably the next step will be make it easy, as you said, to get a copy of your information, to understand what they have been doing with that, and probably delete it, or at least prevent them to monetize your data if you don't want, or at least make you a partner. So because they have the information, they have the clients for that, at least in a future, allowing you to be a partner on that at some point seems fair enough in this process of transformation or migration from Web 2 to Web 3.
I mean, I think there's going to be a long period of coexistence, but if you already look at Facebook, right? I mean, they changed their name, right, to Meta, which is like a reference to the metaverse and everything Web3 related. So I think they realize it, and they are a bit ahead of the trend. They're a bit more up to date than, I guess, the normal person. But just to get back to this data point, like let's say in the Web 2 model, if you sign up to, let's say you sign up to Facebook, you put in your email address, you put in your name, you put in your date of birth. That piece of data is stored on the Facebook database, right?
Yes.
Now, if you go to another Web 2 website, let's say Twitter, right? Then you create another profile. You create another profile. You create your name, your mother's name, your date of birth, location. That's another piece of data stored on the Twitter database. Essentially, it's like duplicated data, right? And now they own the data. Now, the idea of Web3, and we can maybe share the screen a bit later, and I will show you how it works. But like, you will have a digital profile, right? Your own digital profile where you have your name, your age, your date of birth, your cryptocurrencies, your NFTs, your digital assets, everything, like your bank details, everything you can like imagine. And then instead of like giving it to these platforms, you will just give bits and pieces of permission
to read that
to read. And when you're done with the Web3 service, whether that is an NFT platform or a finance platform, from this centralized digital identity that you have, you can just click delete, and then they will no longer have read permission to that data. Or, for example, if you want, they can. You could also have like some sort of model that they pay you, I don't know, €1 a month if they want to keep using your data. There will be not yet. In a couple of years, though. That's where I guess everyone sees that it's going. So yeah, that's about Web3. Maybe if you want, I can like share my screen now and just give a couple of examples. Or do you have you're muted?
Sorry, it was my mistake. To showcase a little bit of the different aspects of Web3, because there are many new words. I'm not going to say that crypto is a new word, but not everybody is fully into that, or cryptocurrencies by itself. But then we have these terms of DeFi or DAO or NFT or or the Web3 concept itself. So if you can show us a little bit how it works, or at least how it works today, it will be a clear example.
I mean,
also because there is a lot of speculation. Even when I think about things Web3 related, and cryptocurrencies come first, and then this new hype of NFTs, we usually lost sight of the purpose of those technologies rather than the current use, and the speculation about how much money people are paying for those NFTs and blah blah blah, and it's easy to get lost into the hype of whatever is trendy rather than what it's useful for.
Exactly.
So
I mean,
please.
with every kind of, let's say, emerging technology, there is a lot of speculation at the beginning, at the birth. So, for example, at the beginning of the year 2000, there was the dot-com bubble.
Oh yes, I remember that.
There were like a lot of websites created. Everyone was like super like investing into crazy websites with crazy valuations, and then it like 99% went to zero, went very low, lost most of its value. Let's say the Amazon or the Google, they stuck around, but after the crash, everyone must have been like, oh, like this is like just useless. Whereas the use cases were not ripe yet, but 10 years later, it kind of came back up, and after the speculation phase, we started getting the real use cases, the real mass adoption, as we mentioned earlier, and yeah. So with this stuff, I think in 2017 when I got into it, it was we were in a big speculative bubble, and essentially there were a lot of like cryptocurrency coins that were launched with just promises of use cases, and they crashed down in 2018, 2019. But then in 2020, DeFi came along, and then in 2021, NFTs came along, and I can like explain those words. But before I kind of get into those two words, just a quick word on what on blockchains, Bitcoin and Ethereum, because those are kind of like these building blocks to understand what DeFi and NFT is. So which one should I start with? I'll start with the blockchains, right? So blockchain is essentially a distributed database that is not governed or by one centralized authority. So if you think of Facebook, they have their centralized database that they own, and they can do whatever they want with it. Whereas a blockchain is a database, but is distributed and is not owned by one central entity. So, yeah.
Distributed, meaning in this case that is basically a replica of the same database in each node part of the network, right?
Exactly. And so if you want to make a change to that database, right? If let's say I want to change my name from Peter to John, then every node or every replica of the database has to agree with it, right? Whereas with Facebook, it's just the Facebook database that has to agree with it, which has its pros and it has its cons. The pros is that if it's one person or one entity that has to agree with it, it's much quicker, it's much cheaper. But its cons is that it's a middleman that can essentially do whatever they want. They can
they can change your name from Peter to John, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Exactly. And if you see what's happening last week in Canada with the bank accounts being frozen, which is horrible. The money of those people are in a bank's database, right? And that's a centralized database that can be just frozen by that entity. Whereas the difference to a blockchain, and specifically, let's say Bitcoin, as it's distributed, there's no one party that can say, okay, I want to freeze this, for example, and then it's frozen. For that to happen, like 10,000 computers across the world and many people have to agree for that to change, and that's most likely not going to happen. Let me turn on my light quickly because it's getting a bit dark.
Sure thing. Perfect.
There you go. I'm back.
There you are.
So that's. Any questions about that one?
Well, I think that as an introduction is quite clear because we can go on blockchain, but the concept of, or at least the difference between a distributed database versus a centralized database is quite clear. So moving forward, you said that you have blockchain, Ethereum, and then
yeah, so you have, let's say, blockchain, Bitcoin. Bitcoin essentially is let's say decentralized money, right? It was created because in 2009 there were central bankers that decided to, in the financial crash, save some, players and not save other players, right? And so it was kind of like this human preference. So that's about Bitcoin. And then in 2016, Ethereum was created, and that you can think essentially of as a decentralized internet that can create applications and programmable logic, right? So you can create, a Facebook or an Uber or an Airbnb in this decentralized manner. I'm not saying those are the best use cases. I'm saying it's doable. So in 2017, you had all sorts of crazy ideas, but then it died down. And in 2020, its first really good use case came along, which was DeFi, which is short for decentralized finance. Okay, and so in finance, I'm not a finance guy, but like you have like basic building blocks. You have borrowing, you have depositing, you have leveraged, you have earning yield. You have all these financial things that can be done today, with your bank or your financial kind of counterparty. But you have to trust them, right? You have to give them your money. And DeFi came along, and they were like, okay, we can provide these services, but in a decentralized manner, without having to trust any human being, just a bunch of decentralized code, essentially. And so if you want, now I can maybe share my screen and just show a quick a DeFi platform.
Yes, please.
And just a very quick idea of how Web3 would work.
Looks like.
So let's go to here. Aave. There you go. Can you see my screen? Fine.
Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect.
So this is just my Chrome browser, and here in the top right I have MetaMask, so-called MetaMask installed, which is a digital crypto wallet, right? And this thing is used to connect to Web3 websites, right? So here you can see I have a very small amount of Ethereum in there, like 0.58. And then if I go to, let me just disconnect for the example's sake. There you go. So now that I'm here on Aave, right? Aave is this lending platform, right? I can go here and I say, I want to connect to this DeFi application. So I click connect, and it tells me, okay, I want to connect with, so it connected with MetaMask. Actually, let me just do that a bit better. Okay, so yeah, can you see I am connected? I'm connected with MetaMask. And from your MetaMask, you can see the websites that you are currently connected to, right? So for example, if I stop using Aave, I can just click on this rubbish bin and I am disconnected, and they no longer have my information.
So this MetaMask is like the digital profile you said that
yes.
You have
so
in one place your things, and then you can grant access
exactly correct
to another places with that. Okay,
correct. It's currently still in a very primitive stage, but essentially we can think of it as think of it as log in with Facebook. Do you know when you log in with Facebook, it's essentially log in with your profile. But the problem with that is that Facebook owns that profile, right? So they know everything you do. Whereas everything that is within my MetaMask, so that can be, all my data, like my cryptocurrencies, my digital assets, would be essentially belonging to me, and I could connect to different Web3 websites through that. So okay, let's connect to this again. Okay, plus. And then it says, oh, by the way, you can have many different accounts, right? So for example, if I want to connect with a different one, then I would, just connect with a different one. And
so,
yeah.
Question. Based on how this MetaMask wallet works,
yes,
your information it's stored somehow in this blockchain network, or and
yes,
it's somehow encrypted. It's how this information is stored.
It's a good
for
question.
Nobody having access to that.
Yes, so that's a good question. So this gets quite complicated, and it gets into cryptography. So basically, the way you have access to this data is that you write down a so-called private key, the private seed phrase, right? Which is 12 words, 12 human readable words, which you store wherever you store with yourself, right? And with those 12 words, you can create a profile. You can create many profiles, and that's where your data is stored in that profile. Now, this kind of introduces a bit of hustle, because you have to, take care of those 12 words, right? So that's why it's a bit complicated for the normal user at the moment. But hopefully, in a couple of years, it will improve. The user interface will improve, and will help mainstream adoption. So yeah, so in this case, I have initialized my wallet. I have written down my 12 words, and I can use it to, I can use this specific profile to log into different websites. But then, for example, if I'm finished with this profile, right, if I don't want to use this profile anymore, I can just, not use it and create a new profile. Because if you look at it, it is, to some extent, it is anonymous, right? It's 7D7A, blah, blah, blah. It's not, I didn't have to upload a passport picture. I didn't have to, KYC. It's just, created on the fly. And this is also, one of its benefits. For example, if you try to open a bank account, in Montenegro, it takes a long time. You have people that have to approve it, and it's quite a hustle. Whereas now, on a click of a button, you basically have a bank account.
It's quite interesting. This, on the optimistic side of things, looks like a real progress towards making everything simpler at some point, and maybe safer. And I would like to believe that the mass adoption of these technologies, or the Web3 in its core, will allow us to prevent ourselves, or at least our economies, when we think about DeFi, from the movements or how the world is behaving right now.
Yeah.
Of course, when you compare the value of whatever digital asset to the real money, you will have these variations in the rates. But I don't know. At least you can have some sort of control of your own money, of your own things.
Yeah, and
and
your
it's
own
quite
data.
interesting.
And let me just show you a bit, how this DeFi platform would work. So, for example, if I want to, deposit my money, right? So imagine it's similar. Like you go to a bank. Let's say you have $100,000, and you put it in a saving vault, right? And they pay you a small percentage, a small interest on it, right? It's the same thing. You would go here in a deposit, right? And I mean, I don't have much money. I have 59 cents, right? But essentially, I could deposit it into the protocol. So this is not a company. This is just a code, a decentralized code base that is out there in, let's think of it as in the cloud. And when I click deposit, it would just put it there, and there would be no human intervention. It would just be my profile and the protocol. And then it would be just deposited in there. And then I could withdraw it whenever I feel like. Now, that's step number one. Step number two is I could borrow money, right? So if I, so let's say I deposit $100,000 worth of Bitcoin, right? I could borrow money against that Bitcoin. So if that Bitcoin is my collateral, I could, let's say, borrow 10,000 euros in the borrow tab over here to then use it for whatever I want. So for example, you have, the US dollar coin. So if I would want to borrow a US dollar coin, I would just say, okay, I want to borrow, I don't know, 10,000 euros, the 10,000 US dollar coins, and then it would kind of, give me crypto US dollars. And once you have the crypto US dollars, you can, send it to an exchange and then, change it into real US dollars, and with that buy a car, for example, or do anything you want. So this is kind of the finance, just a very simple example of decentralized finance. Also in the DeFi context, right? And now I guess the next question would be, okay, but so how did this protocol happen? How did this website just become to be, And the way it works is that, yes, there were developers that created it, but it's not a company, right? So what happens is that when a decentralized website is created, it is initialized by developers and then put on the blockchain, and so-called governance tokens are created. And from then on to to make a change to this website, there is there's a governance that is done, right? And you can see that in this governance tab over here. So instead of having like the CEO and the COO and the CTO kind of deciding on how we will make the change, it is like it's the, and this kind of gets into the DAO, the decentralized autonomous organization. It's the users, it's the owners of this platform that will kind of vote and make a decision. So yeah, and this kind of gets back to Web3, the owning part. Like this is a Web3 website owned by the users, right? So if I own a token here, then I can vote for changes to this website.
So you have some sort of requirements from being just a single user in your first login to be an active user in the community or in this governance system in order to propose or at least to vote, right?
You can use it without being a stakeholder or an owner. But if you're really into using it, you can become a partial owner of this platform. And also you can take a share in all the fees that are accumulated by this website, because for example, if you go here, like there's these percentages here, these borrow percentages, these fees goes back to the platform, right? And if you own so-called governance tokens, then it's some sort of passive income through those governance tokens. So yeah, it's
okay. So it's a way to provide some kind of profit for the time and the participation, or the involvement, or the commit to the platform. And
exactly.
Okay.
It's like, imagine you're using Facebook a lot.
And they pay you for time of using it.
Exactly, they would pay you for your usage, and then instead of having, because if you own Facebook shares, you essentially just kind of get some dividends of their profits. Whereas over here, if you have shares, you can literally vote on what you want to be changed, and it's not just Mark Zuckerberg that is saying, okay, this is the new thing we do.
Exactly, and you get dividends if the directory board decide to share dividends at some point.
Exactly.
So basically, there is nothing you can do with the shares your own, except speculating or selling them at some point.
And so, like a simple example is they changed their name from Facebook to Meta. It was a centralized decision, right?
Exactly. They didn't ask you.
They didn't ask you. They didn't ask the shareholders.
Yes.
Whereas over here in this model, in the Web3 model, where the users own the platform, there would be a vote. Like you could click on one. Actually, we could click on, let's say, something like this, which was, we could say, okay, that there's a proposal, like there's actually a detailed proposal of what, okay, this is actually quite complicated. I have no idea what this is, but it would be very simple. Do you want us to change our name from Facebook to Meta? Yes or no? And then people would vote. And based on the vote, based on the outcome of the vote, the change would be made,
Okay, and is there any kind of the percentage of users like positive against negatives?
No,
I mean,
that's
for example, the Brexit was for 51-point-something%. Basically,
but that's a very good question, because I guess these are things you can set at the beginning, like overwhelming majority or a 50% majority, like things like that. But in this case, if you look at the specific case here, it was you had more yeses than nos, but it still failed. So I think you needed more percentages to
because if I think that affects directly the amount of power of the community, or at least the amount of quorum needed.
Yes. And also, I would also add that in order to propose something, not every shareholder can propose something, but you would need a minimum amount of shares. So let's say you would need like 1% of the shares to propose something, right? So it's not like you buy like one token and then you can create immediately
suggesting changes.
Suggesting changes. So you would have to have like a minimum amount. So you'd have to be like a fairly important participant as well, which is. But these are like configurations that can be tuned. Like.
Okay, so this seems to be like a classical or ideal model of democracy at some point.
Exactly.
So,
and then, if I could just quickly expand on that point, you said Brexit, right? Brexit was this one thing that took months and months, maybe even years to like organize, and then it came down to just one vote, right? And so many things depended on that one vote. And why is current democracy so slow, let's say, is because to organize an in-person vote for a human being to go and put something in a ballot, it requires a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of organization. And the frequency at which it can be done is not very high. It's like once every 4 years.
And not to mention the possibility of fraud.
Not to mention that, you don't know what happened. Whereas in this model, like we could have 10 votes every day if we wanted to. We could make as many changes as we wanted to, as long as we have the governance that approves. And now, let's say you're not someone that is actively involved in it, and you don't want to like keep up to date with every little change. The next possibility you would have is to delegate your vote to someone you trust that knows more than you, right?
Okay.
So in the case of, let's say the Brexit, I personally don't follow politics that much, but my father does. So instead of like doing all the research and understanding what's the best for my country, I would say, okay, I trust you. I trust my father, and then I delegate my vote to him, and he would essentially vote represent me. But I can revoke my vote at any time.
Anytime, okay.
At any time. It's kind of already done today with like house of you select your representative and all that stuff, but also you get those people are elected every 4 years as well. You get to your local representative or stuff like that. Whereas over here it's software,
also it depends. In politics, there is different models where sometimes you just elect the party and then they select your representatives.
Exactly.
Based on their own interests. So one big question is, is this kind of a governance system, this decentralized thing, can be applied for normal corporations or industries or even countries at some point?
Yes. So everything where decision making is done, it can be applied. It's just a question of I guess will of education, of learning about it. Now we're still in the early phases of experimenting this in like a crypto set, but eventually I believe that this model will take over corporations, and eventually government, because it's just an easier way. Remember when there was the Trump versus Biden, right? And there was the voting that was going on there. Like we were in 2020, we were voting with pieces of paper, like, and counting that manually was impossible. With this system, it would be instantaneous and fraud-free, the counting. There would not be any ambiguity. So absolutely yes to your question.
Okay, it's interesting because I was thinking about this trend that started a few years ago, thinking about corporations or private organizations in an horizontal model rather than the traditional vertical.
Exactly.
And this could be a way to empower those who are part of this,
horizontal,
structure.
but with different proportions, voting proportions.
Of course, because even if it is horizontal, you have a manager, you have a senior director, and then you have small teams. But everybody can become a part. This feeling of, okay, I belong to this organization, and I can my opinion is taken into account in the big decisions, to say something, just because the people working in that organization is what they make them happen.
Exactly. I mean, you mentioned that Startup Grind is maybe thinking of doing a DAO, right?
Yes, Startup Grind is working on that.
So it's exactly the same concept. A DAO is a decentralized autonomous organization, which is essentially this government structure that I just showed. Now, let's say Montenegro is much smaller than the USA. So let's say the voting percentage of America would be bigger than that of Montenegro. But if there's a change on, let's say, okay, they want to change their logo, right? Then everyone could vote, but the vote proportion percentage would be smaller depending on how important you are, or how much governance power you have. As an example.
Okay, it's really interesting, and I don't know, I can think about several cases of good use of this new kind of technology. The other thing, thinking about the fraud, I think that there are two things. First is that basically when you vote, you have the cryptographic signature, let's say, linked to that vote. So it's impossible to change that. As you said yes or no, it's you in that digital profile.
Exactly.
But if you also made your name public from that profile, so we can also know that it was you and not anybody else who said that or who took that opinion or that vote. So I think that the feeling of security of how the process is going is much more higher than any traditional voting application that we have right now.
Yeah. And then it's just a question of getting used to it. Like many people are more comfortable with a piece of paper and going to a ballot. But at the beginning, we were not comfortable getting on an airplane either. But now we just get on an airplane and we know we'll be fine. So it's just a question of time, I guess.
Time, education at some point, because when you explain how it works, it sounds so ideal at some point. That why governments they don't use this electronic voting system, because there are so many ways that you can tamper the machines, that you can alter things, that you can change something in between the machine and the database. But with this system, that would be completely impossible at some point. And if I'm not mistaken, all the transactions are registered in this blockchain.
Exactly. Yeah.
Thing. So I don't know. I hope people get more into this. that new tools to make it more accessible and new case of use are getting public. So people start adopting these things that will make a world much more fair at some point when it comes to decision taking. So my question is now, what will be of those sets of different tools or technologies being part of Web3? What will have a better chance of being adopted massively? Because we haven't spoke about NFT yet.
Yeah.
But I think that this is the first case of use of beyond investing in cryptocurrencies that it's getting the attention of normal people, or at least non-technical people.
Yeah, so NFT, speaking specifically of NFTs, which stand for non-fungible tokens or non-interchangeable tokens, got fairly mainstream last year because you didn't need to be so technical in order to appreciate it, in order to understand what it is. Because in some sense, it already existed in the world previously. So for example, many people, they play video games, right? And within video games, you have all these digital objects, right? You have a digital sword, a digital helmet, stuff like that. And then you do stuff in order to earn, digital objects.
So you have tools, you have costumes, you have accessories for your character. Or, these pieces of.
And the game would be essentially to to level up, But the problem was what we spoke of earlier, is that those objects, those tools were essentially tied to a centralized database. So the players didn't own their digital objects up until NFTs came along, which allowed people to natively own their digital objects. And now that boomed because it had many use cases. It had use cases in gaming, which is the example I just gave. It has use cases in collectibles and art, which is very the easiest use case. Digital art, digital collectibles. But yeah, it will slowly. So that's kind of a lot in the digital space, but eventually it's kind of just a better way of managing data, like managing unique pieces of data. So even your car or your house is something unique, right? And I believe that eventually on the long term, governments will choose to represent those as NFTs rather than their current format of some centralized governmental registry,
So that can mean that my title of ownership of my car, let's say, it's a digital thing.
Yes.
That gives me the power, or at least give me the title of possession of that piece of metal, with wheels, in the physical world. Okay, so sounds quite interesting. And as far as I know, the first use that we have of these NFTs are these kind of avatars or digital art. And a few days ago, it was launched the first NFT collections for Montenegro. It's called Treasure of Montenegro. I think that it is in OpenSea.
Okay.
So I think there's like 70 something pieces of high quality pictures of Montenegro. If you want, you can check it out and you can share your screen.
Yeah, let me do that.
And okay, I think it's something interesting because Montenegro is jumping into this at some point before we expected it. So it's a really nice start.
And do you know who did it? Was it like the government that did it, or was it?
No, I think it was the luxury organization of Montenegro or something like that. Let me check something.
Okay, so let me show my screen then, and then I can also share screen. Yeah, so here we're on OpenSea and Montenegro.
Okay, I have it here, and the link would be this is OpenSea.io collection treasure of Montenegro with dash treasure dash of dash Montenegro. So far, 770 items. Treasure, yes, treasure of Montenegro.
There you. No, that's not it. This one.
Yes, that one. Yes, exactly.
Oh wow! Oh, nice. Okay, yeah, Montenegro Luxury Association. Nice. So yeah, I mean, this is as you say, it's a collection. Yeah, so these are like nice photographies minted as NFTs.
Exactly. Yes.
And yeah, so if you I don't know, if we just pick one, let's say this one. This one is, it's a photography, and it's if now I would buy this NFT, then I would own the original one, right? And then I could prove on the blockchain that I own the original photography that was created by the artist, right? The artist being, I think, this luxury Montenegro. And so one use case of it, you mentioned avatars, right? So since the pandemic, and even before, we spend a lot of time on our computers online, right? And avatars have always been kind of a part of part of our digital identity. But until now, there was like no way of like proving what's an original and what's a fake, up until NFTs came along. So let me just show you this example of Twitter, okay?
Okay, before you jump onto this, quick question. Can you switch? Yes, here.
Yeah.
Is there any possibility of one single digital asset to have multiple owners, but multiple owners by the 100% of the piece, like selling copies?
Yeah. So actually, so in this case, you can see that the owner created 25 pieces of this picture, right? Which means that there are 25 originals, right?
So, but at some point, this only occurs in the digital world. I mean, you don't own the raw file of the picture.
You own the.
You own the JPEG of the picture.
Well, you kind of own you have the ownership of the piece, because if I take, like, now I go here and I go like this and I take a screenshot,
No, of course, you get a copy of that.
I have a copy of it, but I don't have the ownership of this photography, and which means that I would not be able to sell it at market value, So, you have some NFTs that are like very, very valuable, many millions, but the fact that I just take a picture or a screenshot wouldn't mean that I actually own that NFT. Like, I don't have the ownership of the intellectual property, the IP of it, right?
Yes. So the intrinsic value of it is this specific piece of code.
Exactly. It's tied
belongs to someone.
It's tied to your address. It's tied to your digital identity. And so then if I show you the Twitter example here, Twitter introduced a very interesting feature a month ago maybe, and it basically it allows you to display your profile picture as an NFT. So you notice that this one over here is a circle, right?
Which is the normal.
Which is the normal picture, but if you start scrolling down, you notice that some have a hexagon,
right? Yeah.
A hexagon. So if you click on the circle here, right, there's nothing, right? It's essentially just a pure picture of a circle, right? But now let's go back and let's click on the hexagon. And you click on the hexagon and you see that this one is a verified collection by OpenSea, and the collection itself is created by this Satoshi Emfer, and you can go verify on the blockchain, or actually this one is for some reason this is not. But you can actually go to the contract. Yeah, you can go on the blockchain and actually see it that this is indeed the original one. And so Twitter does this by representing it with a hexagon, right? So that is quite interesting.
So this is like the blue tick or something, right? But
Exactly.
for your profile picture.
Exactly, and then you will be able to. It's a shame that So this one is this Emfer. So if you go onto it has a link to OpenSea, so I can open it on OpenSea, and I can have this digital asset, this NFT. I can see it here. And I can have a history of it, right? I can see that this person a month ago bought it for 0.19, and I can see the exact date, and I can see every detail related to it that is on the blockchain. So this is like the original piece. Now
so you can track pretty much the entire history of transactions over that item.
Exactly. And this is beautiful because in the real world, like take a real piece of art, let's say a Picasso, it's pretty much impossible, right? It's you would have to rely on many middlemen to do correct paperwork, and then experts kind of analyzing the painting that this is indeed an original and not a fake one. Whereas here it's just immediate,
And then the price is you get the price in an auction basically. So who's the biggest?
You have many ways of buying it. You can either make an offer, or there are sometimes auctions, or you can just buy it at the asking price. So if if you look at a different one, so this one has an offer, but you could just buy them,
So all the NFTs that when you mint, that if I'm not mistaken, mint means to attach or link a digital piece of data to your wallet, right?
Exactly.
It's like association.
Exactly.
So everything is for sale, or you can decide just I own it and I don't sell it. I don't want to
exactly. So you can decide not to sell. For example, here there are 10,000 items. Not everyone is for sale. If you want to filter it to only the for sale, then you would click the buy now button. And then you see that only 1,100 are for sale, right? And so the cheapest one in this collection would be this one here at 3.38 Ethereum.
That's like 10,000 euros or something like that.
It's like $8,000. So this little piece of person costs $8,000, which is crazy, but not at the same time, So this person decides to sell it, but there's another person that decides not to sell it. And so what's the value in this? If I would buy this now, right? If I would click buy and I would make a transaction through MetaMask, I would own it, and then it's like this digital Rolex. I could go on Twitter and I could signal to all my friends and followers that I own the original. I paid $10,000 for it, and it's like a Ferrari, it's like a Rolex, it's like a Gucci bag,
Okay, is it like a flex basically? Right now.
Exactly, it's a digital flex, and especially in a world that is going more and more digital, especially since COVID, it's a trend that I think will just accelerate and not stop.
Okay, it's quite interesting.
And whilst we're at it, let me kind of jump into a virtual gallery. Okay.
Sure, that will be interesting to see.
So here's a virtual gallery that currently is displayed on my screen, but imagine that in the future you enter this with a VR headset, right? So it's this. Yes.
This is the kind of metaverse idea, right?
Now we're getting into the metaverse. So it's this fully immersive experience where you can just walk around and see pieces, right? It's a virtual museum, basically, right? But then you can also have virtual worlds, virtual games. And everything that is hanging on the wall here is an NFT, is the original piece. So for example, if you go further down here, this is his main piece, and it's this beautiful so-called fidenza. You see in the bottom right of my screen, you have press E for details.
For details, yes.
So if I press E, it comes up, and then I can go view on OpenSea, right? So then once again, I can just click view on OpenSea, and I can see that this guy, this Vincent van Douw, he bought this piece for 100 Ethereum 7 months ago, which is about $200,000, which is amazing. Now, think of websites today. You can buy stuff on websites, but in the future, websites will look more like this. Will look more like this virtual gallery. Like you walk into a virtual space, and you'll be able to like just buy NFTs directly from the virtual experience with your digital profile. Like I like this, I click buy, and then that's it.
Which creates something quite interesting, because the feeling that these NFTs brings to you from the gallery exposition are completely different from just a grid in a website.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I don't know. I think that I could be more willing to buy something inside this metaverse, with the headset and the whole experience, rather than just click and do the traditional e-commerce.
Exactly,
thing.
and then I would maybe add the generational component as well. That maybe my grandmother, she would not have any value in these digital pieces. She would prefer to buy, I don't know, a cloth from a physical store. But then you have all the the teenagers that are growing up in a virtual world already, and they would have no problem in buying stuff like this. It's like, and
Well,
this is an example.
This will be natural for them, right?
It will be just natural. Like they were grown up with the internet. So this is an example of photography, right? So this is photography, right? That's a perfect use case for NFTs.
Okay. How people can get involved into this? I'm not going to go through the technical details of uploading things to OpenSea, but for example, how do you become a part of one website of this, this kind of gallery?
So creating a gallery like this is free, right? So I even have my own gallery. It's not that impressive as this one, but I mean, just to get involved is you would want to have just a very small amount of cryptocurrency, maybe buy a small NFT. Nothing. There's no big money involved here. Just buy an NFT, see how it feels. Maybe sell that NFT and just do the basic transactions. Mint an NFT and then create a gallery like this. For example, if I just go to here, I can create an experience, right? So if I click here. Once again, this is a Web3 website, so I would connect with my MetaMask, right? And then I would be like, okay, let me do it now, because this is one of my wallets. No, this one's not good. Let me. Yeah, so you would. I mean, I don't have any. Well, why is this? Oh, there's some issue happening here. But long story short, you could just create a gallery and hang your NFTs that you own.
So you link let's say the gallery space.
Yeah.
To your collection,
Exactly.
And the collection is imported into this gallery automatically, right?
Not imported, but you could like customize it. You could drag and drop. For example.
So you build the whole process.
Yeah.
So you decide where to put each piece.
Yeah, so for example, there are. Let me try to log on to it, because this should work. Wait, no, sorry, this won't work because it's the wrong address. But yeah.
It's okay. I think that the website is oncyber.io.
oncyber.io. Okay, like
Okay,
this one will work. But okay, so the galleries themselves, they're just essentially like 3D templates, right? So here you go. Choose a space, right? So you have the free options, and then you have the curated collections, which cost money to get those galleries. But if you would want, let's say, I don't know, like this gallery here, let's say, then I choose that, and then I would be dropped into that gallery, and it's like a drag and drop experience. So see, you have just a bunch of spaces on the wall, and you could just add your NFT over here, And I mean, I don't have any NFTs in this wallet of mine, but
no, but I understand the concept pretty clear. So I think this short demo is useful enough for our audience to try to make some experience on this.
Yep.
And I was thinking, based on the question that I made at the beginning of this section, what will be the first case of use? And this seems to be pretty straightforward. Many people has experience in using WordPress or using any kind of e-commerce platform for selling or for buying things like Amazon or eBay, or maybe doing your market for the week in the local store online. So this is not going way beyond that, with a different perspective. So you have the 3D environment, but the process is quite similar. So it's really nice to see these kind of applications that already exist that bring some more an extra layer of doing things easier. So it's a good way to get into the metaverse space.
Yeah, I mean, there's still a lot of improvements to be done. Don't get me wrong, but like the basic ideas and the founding blocks, I think, are getting there. And
well, with the giant of technology launching applications or bringing new tools or new technology or devices for users, I think they will accelerate this adoption process. So we have been little over than 1 hour now. It's always my pleasure to have these kind of conversations with you. I learn a lot every time, and I'm pretty sure that our audience will enjoy this session as much as I did. So, Peter, once again, thank you for being here with us today, and I hope to see you along the year, maybe with another interesting talk with us.
Yeah, definitely. It was super fun. Thanks for having me.
So this is everything for today. It was a great first event of Startup Grind Montenegro. I hope to catch you guys on the next one. See you.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye-bye.